Anybody have any questions about anything that we did, or about Hatch chilies, or?
What makes Hatch chilies so different than some of the other chilies that are out there? I mean, I love them, and I know that they're pretty special.
Hatch is a town in New Mexico, and they've done a good job of marketing themselves.
Okay.
They grow chilies all up and down the Rio Grande River, and you can go all over New Mexico and buy chilies. They're not Hatch chilies, but you can bring them back and call them Hatch. Nobody knows the difference. But the Hatch chilies, when New Mexico was colonized by the Spanish back in the 1600s, I believe. Correct? Anybody knows anything?
Somewhere around.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They colonized up there, and they brought in their way of cooking and doing stuff, and the Indians that lived there in the Pueblos had their own way of cooking, and then they kind of merged together. They brought the cumin in and all the sheep and cattle, and then they had a rebellion that ran the Spanish off, and then they existed there all on their own for a couple of hundred years without any kind of isolated. And that's where this cuisine kind of came into its own. And the Indians that lived in that region grew these long green chilies. Well, with modern technology and everything, they have taken these green chilies and various colleges, New Mexico State and Texas A&M, got to stick their nose in it. They have developed every little town has their little hybrid chili now. So some are hot, some are long, some are short, some are mild, some taste like this, some taste like that. And also, when you talk about green chilies, there's also, these turn red when they're ripe. All peppers are green. All chilies are green. Well, not all chilies are green.
They're green sometimes.
Most chilies are green. Some are white, some are orange. But when they turn ripe, they turn red, purple, or yellow. And so they have red chili and green chili. And the red chili you get later in the season because the chilies are ripe. And then they take the chilies and they grate them into ristras to dry and preserve them. So back before the days of refrigeration and freezers and stuff like that, you only got green chilies in the fall, and it was a big deal. And it was a big festival, and everybody couldn't wait until the green chili was out. And then once it was out, it was gone. And then you had red chili the rest of the year until the end of the summer when the green chilies came back in.
So I know you can only get like the Hatch during this August, right?
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now, if you live there, you got your own pepper plants and whatnot, you can kind of budge back and forth. But the official harvest, depending on the rain, the rains come in the late summer and fall, and the earlier the rains come, the earlier the harvest. So, and that affects the heat and everything. So.
They do just have a different taste than other, like Anaheim's or other long green peppers.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And it's the soil they're grown in, it's the conditions they're grown in, it's,
Water levels, and how often it rains, and when it rains, and all that good stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
So wrong.
How much longer does the season last?
It depends, it goes year to year. They're still picking peppers there now. The earlier they invent the season and the festival, the more money they make. So the longer they can make their season, the better off they are monetarily. But it's typically August, September. Now I'll keep chilies in my freezer and make green chili burgers at Fred's probably until after the first of the year when I run out. It's usually when I run out.
Do you think you season whole?
The way I do it, I've got my own chili roaster like they have down here, and you roast them, and while they're still hot, put them in a Ziploc bag, and then you can either peel them. We can put them in that Ziploc bag hot, they continue to steam, and the skin's easier to peel off. And then you can freeze them. You just leave them right in that bag, and you just throw those bags of peppers in the freezer, and they'll last till spring. They don't last that long at my house. Yes, ma'am.
You peel them before you freeze them?
You can. I don't.
Okay.
Did you get a little bit of hot hatch over there? She experienced the hot hatch.
So if you don't roast it, do you ever get anything or just wash it in a bag?
What do you mean?
Freeze like that, if you
No, it
don't
froze.
roast.
No, ma'am, you don't want to freeze them raw, because they're impossible to work with when you, because anytime you freeze any type of vegetable, some vegetables freeze better than others. You know, plants have cells, and yeah, you know, you put a glass of, you put a plastic water bottle of water in the freezer, and it, you know, expands. So whenever you freeze a vegetable, it pops the cell, so when it thaws out, it's mush. But if you cook them first, it's a different deal if you roast them first.
They're really good raw too. Look like cut my food salad.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's a different subject, but let's go back in time 130 years from now. And I just bedded the cattle down, I'm coming back to the duck wagon to eat. What on average did the cowboys really eat back then? When they did
Beans
the
and biscuits,
beans and biscuits, pretty much.
and a dessert made out of leftover biscuit dough with some cinnamon and sugar on it.
Really?
Not me.
Well, it all depended if you were working on the ranch or if you were on a cattle drive.
A cow just happened
And
to
it all
die.
depends on how close to the neighbor's ranch you there's a joke. Old man Bert Burnett started the 4-6s, and old man Wagner started the Wagner Ranch. And they're both big, huge ranchers, and back in the day, they touched each other. And one day, about Thanksgiving, old man Wags asked old man Burnett over for Christmas dinner. And he said, I want to feed you something that you've never had. And he goes, okay. So he comes over, and they take the top off the platter, and there's a big old joint of roast beef there. So they eat it. He goes, you know, this is pretty good, Mr. Wags, but, you know, you said you was going to serve me something I ain't never had before, and, you know, this is roast beef. He goes, yeah, it's one of yours. So, but
I know, yeah, they're enjoying it.
on the cattle drive, typically, you know, in the old-timey cattle drive, typically, they only had what they carried on that wagon. And they could trade stuff with settlers, depending on what time period you're talking about. Because later, there's more people to trade with. You know, you can trade with the Indians, stuff, you know, whatever. But those cowboys got paid by how many cattle got to the trailhead, just like the boss did. And it was not in their best interest to kill anything to eat. So they were justified living off coffee, beans, and biscuits, but they didn't have more money to blow in Fort Worth and Dodge City and whatnot on the ladies.
Whiskey and wind.
Yes, sir. And that's what it was all about. And when the mint julep came out, Fort Worth was famous for its mint juleps. You hear about mint juleps in Tennessee at the Kentucky Derby and whatnot. But mint juleps were pretty famous in Fort Worth. Imagine if you were a cowboy and you've never seen ice before in your life, and somebody hands you a whiskey snow cone.
Just died going.
This is the best thing I've ever had in my life. So mint juleps were a big hit back then, and they went wild.